Hey everybody, my name is Spin, and today we're going to be talking about map control. Now, 2 days ago, I was playing on Split, and what I was doing is I was always just trying to contest the site or contest the areas that my teammates weren't contesting. I was actually carrying my teammates by a significant amount, but right before we won, some of them turned around and called me a baiter, and they said that I wasn't playing as a team. But what I was doing is I was just contesting the parts of the map that they weren't contesting. They're so used to playing this one way where you have all 5 people just rush a site and hope everything goes well, that they're not used to this concept that map control can win you the game. The thing is, if you want to keep your opponents on their toes, you have to contest as much of the map as possible, and you have to maintain as much map control as possible. Hey, check it out. I'm not gonna waste your time, but I'm just gonna say this one thing. If you like this video, please subscribe. Let's look at any team versus team sport. Let's take a look at American football, for example, which is actually a very warlike sport. You may have a team that is incredible at passing plays. So why would you rush the ball if your team is so good at passing? You have to do that because you have to keep your opponents guessing, even if your team is not that good at rushing, and you need to keep the opponent's team spread out. If you only pass the ball, your opponents will just give up the front line and cover the receivers. On the other hand, if you only rush, your opponents will give up blocking the receivers and just hold a massive front line that your rushers will never get through. I'm not sure if other countries use this slang, but Americans call this keeping your opponent honest. No, it's not like making sure your opponents tell the truth. It's the concept of teaching your opponents to respect the dangerous threat that you pose on the field. In Valorant, a defending team that's not honest will just push the attacking team over and over because they don't think you're a threat. So if your team sends like 2 or 3 opponents to A, they're just gonna push one teammate through middle and one teammate through B because they don't think you're gonna contest that part of the map. On the other hand, a defending team can be made honest. So even though some of your teammates might push the A site, for example, they'll still exert caution on middle and on B. This is actually good for your teammates that are pushing A because they won't be overwhelmed too quickly by rotates. So how do you keep your opponents honest? You have to exert and maintain map control. As defenders, this is a no-brainer, but as attackers, apparently this requires some galaxy brain level thinking. So let me walk you through a basic version of what I'm talking about with map control. What I see a lot of attackers do is before the round even starts, they'll say, okay, we're gonna go A or we're gonna go B, and they just rush the bomb up, or they just go with the intention of definitely taking that site instead of first going for map control. So if you're an attacker here and you're calling, okay, let's go B. So I'll often see maybe 1 or 2 players here on the link, and then maybe they'll send 3 players on B long here. And they might instruct one of these 2 players here to stay back, or maybe this player goes back and holds the rear in case A pushes up here. But what's really happening is, so this area right here, this is what you control when you're not playing for map control and you're just playing one site before you even make any decisions at all. And this is what your opponent controls, especially if they push up out of A. This is what your opponent has control over. And that's what you have right there, especially if they still own hookah, especially if they still own garden, which they will contest it if they're smart. Who is in control here? Who is setting the tempo for the round? Who is, screwed and who is not screwed? To me, the red guys are screwed and the green team is not screwed. Okay, let's try one more time, except this time we're gonna go for map control. So let's say we'll send 1 B long, 1 B short, 2 A short, and 1 into the A lobby / showers area. So now, right from the start of the map, this is what we control. We have control over approximately just under half of the map here, just in the beginning of the round. And so if anybody from the defending team pushes up, they're going to get punished. If anyone from the defending team throws out an ability, we should have some information from those attacking players on where those opponents are. And obviously, this is what the defending team is gonna own right here. So right here, this looks like a lot more of an even fight than what we saw before. And so now let's say your B-long player gets a pick on B-long. Great, now you own the B-long teleporter, which is huge, and you can push up into B-long. Meanwhile, your A-short player and your shower players have gathered a decent amount of information on what's happening on A site. They baited out some utility, which means they should know which characters are playing on A. So all of this information is gonna inform your team on what they should do next. So if you go into the round saying, hey, we're gonna go for B, we're just gonna go for it, well, you're not really making an informed decision. But if you play like this, if you play for map control, you're gonna have so much information and you're gonna be able to set the tempo of the match. See, map control allows your team to call the shots. Map control allows your team to set the tempo of the round. It allows your team to set the pace. It lets your team be unpredictable, and it denies your opponent information on what your team is doing. It also punishes opponents that push out early in the round for more information. But one of the most important things that contesting the whole map does is it forces your opponents to use their abilities early on in the round. See, because you're contesting a part of the map, your opponents are going to feel the pressure to use some of their abilities to stop you from pushing so aggressively. Most characters and agents have an E ability that comes back with time. So if you use your E ability, but your opponents throw out a non-E ability, like something that's not renewable, well, then you force them to use an ability that they're not going to get back later in the round. Baiting out that kind of utility is what's going to allow you to play Valorant late in the round while they're going to be stuck playing CSGO, which is Valorant with no abilities. I know it's not as simple as that, but I was just kind of making a joke. Don't come for me. The point I'm trying to make is this: get creative to contest parts of the map and bait out the opponent's utility so that in the middle round and the later round, your opponents will not have utility left. But it's not as simple as just saying it. Executing map control can be challenging. First, you want to make sure that you're not just spreading out your team just because you can. This is Valorant, and some agents have more map control capability than others. For example, Cypher and Sova have the capability to lock down more of the map than other agents because of their recon abilities, while agents like Sage can slow down a rush with her walls and slow orbs. Some agents also need to be with a group to be the most effective, like Sage, while some have more potential to go on their own. Omen can work as a solo on attacker because he can still utilize his long-range smokes to help his teammates wherever they may be. Phoenix has 2 abilities that can heal himself and also has a flashing capability, so he has pretty high survivability. Just keep in mind, Phoenix is also very useful for taking a site, especially if he has his ultimate. Jett is also a decent solo player as well because she's currently not as strong as other agents, so if you have a Jett, then why the hell not? Other operators can work as a solo too. Just keep in mind your team's composition before you kind of assign locations for everybody. Another thing to keep in mind is that map control is not simply the attackers sitting in a corner and waiting for the defenders to push out. Hiko rightfully pointed this out in one of his recent streams.
Taking map control is not going here and sitting in this corner, right? It's trying to like push them off of the choke points. It's trying to take them and bait their utility. It's trying to get their Phoenix flashes out. It's trying to get their Brimstone flashes out. Like, me sitting here all around is not map control. Like, me trying to take map control is like actually trying to fight mid. And even if I die, make sure he doesn't run away from it. Like, so right there, off 1 grenade and 2 of us shooting, they wasted wall, slow, Molotov, other Molotov. So off 1 grenade, I just wasted 4 abilities. So that right there, that's good map control.
While you may hold half the map if you're just sitting there, camping, waiting for a defender to push, if you're not volleying with your opponent in one way or the other, then your opponent still has the advantage, and you want to make sure to contest parts of the map so you can bait out that utility as well. This isn't true 100% of the time, but it usually is. Let's say you have opponents that just keep pushing and pushing and pushing through. Well, it might be smart to just kind of wait for them to push through, punish them, and then move on. This is pretty rare when your opponents are smart, and again, if you punish them, they're probably not going to push out again for the next few rounds, so you're going to want to keep contesting. Let's take a look at this clip from Skadoodle. So right when the round starts, they're going to be sending 2 into C long, 1 to C short, 1 holding middle, and 1's going to be holding A. Now, while Sova is not necessarily pushing into A to try to contest it, he is still getting map control by making sure that a flank is not coming in. Meanwhile, they're still maintaining a decent amount of map control on the middle section while the Raze pushes into C short. So at this point right here, as they start to make their push, they still have a decent amount of map control. Their Sova is still watching their back to make sure that they don't get flanked. So there's nothing unexpected that's going to happen to them at this moment. So once Raze pushes into C short here, is going to get an easy pick. Once Raze gets that pick, look at what these 2 players are going to do. They're instantly going to give up these sections right here because they're no longer relevant because there's a C execute happening. So boom, even though Skadoodle died, once they got another pick on the C site here, they completely gave up B, they completely gave up A, and they just all rotated right back onto C because that's where the execute was happening. A lot of us are coming from CSGO, and it feels like when we started to play Valorant for the first time, we just kind of reverted back to those like Silver and Nova style plays where we just kind of take the bomb and all rush a site and hope everything works out. But we kind of forgot that in the higher levels of CSGO, you need to control the map, and it's no different in Valorant. If you want to win as attackers, and this doesn't necessarily mean there isn't a time and place for a 5-man stack or a 4-man stack rush. But it does mean that you shouldn't just be rushing and rushing and rushing a site every single time. Whenever I'm playing in Valorant, I often hear people say right in the beginning of the round, before the round even starts, they're like, okay, you want to go A, or you want to go B, or do you want to go C? And my response is, well, let's just get map control and see what happens. If someone gets a pick here on C, then let's go C. If we hear them rotating to C, maybe we're going to juke back and go to A, but let's make those decisions later after we see how the round kind of plays out. So if the four of y'all decide to grab a bomb and try to go contest like B long, don't get mad if I go to contest middle or if I go to contest A. I'm just trying to get map control, and you should consider it too. Again, make sure to play smart, trade with your teammates if they die, but again, make sure you're not baiting your teammates because that really triggers people on ranked. And if you do find yourself in a lurking situation, try not to lurk for too long because again, people get just really triggered by that kind of stuff. Hey everybody, my name is Spin. If you like this video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Believe it or not, like every time you hit that like button or you hit the subscribe button, it actually makes a difference to me. So I would really appreciate it. Peace and love, everybody.